opportunities. You know, it hasn't been easy the last couple of years. We've dealt with a lot of tough stuff. A lot of things that have been hanging on and hanging, you know, holding the country back in ways. The financial system was not healthy. It needed a lot of work, and we put some pieces back into place, and the president signed that bill last week. The healthcare system, same thing. For my law firm, we saw our premiums just going through the roof, year after year after year. My oldest daughter has epilepsy, and so she, you know, was in a position that if she didn't have some good group policy, she can't get insurance. So we remedied a couple of these things in this bill, and it's got a long way to go, and it's certainly not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It needs to be refined over time, but we've dealt with a couple of very difficult things. Locally, I've been very successful on helping bring the new VA hospital over to Fitzsimmons in Aurora. That thing had been sort of on the drawing board for year after year after year after year. Currently, we've already demolished a couple buildings. There are 159 engineers, architects, land planners, and landscape people working to design the very, you know, intricate pieces of the building. Where do you put the plugs? Where do you put the operating lights? And the rule of thumb is that for every one architect, engineer, etc., you usually have 10 people on the construction site. So this site will have anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 people working on that job, and then ultimately will employ 2,000 people, making the Fitzsimmons campus with the University of Colorado, the Children's Hospital, and now the new VA health center, which will take care of veterans from Montana all the way to New Mexico. It will be one of the finest medical facilities anywhere in the world, and definitely will be something that will drive lots of jobs and create lots of jobs here in Colorado for a long time to come.
Good.
But this is my home. I just appreciate you putting a group together this fast. I mean, this is fantastic, and I'm happy to take any questions, but I do appreciate your inviting me and your attention this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amin, you have something to say?
Yes, I just not weekend. So that's where, I mean, if you want to go part by part, I'm not that expert in the act. That's just my overall impression.
I have a brief follow-up question. Since you're on the insurance committee,
you don't need the mic.
Since you're on the insurance committee, I have a health-related question.
Well, I can also beg off on that. We don't do any health insurance. We do life, we do property and casualty, we do wind and flood and disability. We don't do health, but go ahead and ask it.
I think you need to know a little bit because you're going to get involved. Because my question is, the health insurance industry in this country, as far as I'm concerned, needs more regulation. They have unbridled access to whatever it is they can do. Most of the people who are sitting here today may not be able to afford their private health insurance tomorrow, and they'll go back to either the state or the federal pool, and you'll have to put up with them. Do you think more regulation is necessary for health insurance companies, the way they have operated in the last 10, 15, 20 years?
The question is, do I think that there needs to be more regulation for health insurance companies? And one of the things that we were attempting to do in the healthcare legislation is to get our arms around health insurance companies. One thing that we did, and it will kick into gear in 2014, is to establish the marketplace where every health those health insurers that want to participate have to participate on apples to apples kind of a basis. So there'll be a policy. You can buy the basic policy or something that has more provisions, more benefits to it, and then a Cadillac policy. But they each are, so you'll know that you're competing your insurance policy from Aetna or United Healthcare or Kaiser or whatever, that you're comparing equal things. There was a drive to have what was called the public option, where if you felt that the insurance companies weren't really competing with each other, then you could go to this option called a public option. That ultimately was dropped out of the bill in the Senate and is not part of it. I generally believe in the marketplace, and I'm hoping that by putting these insurance companies into a marketplace where everybody can look at them on the internet and compare policy to policy and price to price, that we'll get better competition, and that will help manage prices. There are a lot of people concerned that that isn't going to be good enough. We'll just have to meet that issue at that time, because we have all seen policies go way up. Healthcare costs have gone up. People have gotten older. You know, baby boomers have gotten older and see the doctors more often. So, I mean, there are a number of different things that are going on that as a nation we have to get our arms around it, because healthcare has been a very expensive part of our economy and is something that I think does hold us back from being as prosperous as we can be. But on the other hand, you know, the good news is it worked. The bad news is it worked. And we've got it wasn't small banks. This wasn't all started with some pretty risky bets made on Wall Street. Okay, some of these guys just got way out there, very highly leveraged, lots of different kinds of investments that were very, very risky. So the small banks, that wasn't their fault, but what happened is all of a sudden they see their collateral prices drop, then they got to start calling in loans. What we did in the 80s is we said, okay, book or acknowledge that you've had a drop in your collateral value, but we're going to give you some time over a number of years to pay back that capital, not all at once. So it gives them a chance to work with their borrowers, either to extend them new credit or at least not call in the line of credit, so that the business can keep running. And that's what our article is all about. We passed that out of the House to the Senate, and we'll see how far it goes. We also have some other bills that provide some tax incentives to small businesses that are hiring new people to go forward, but that still doesn't get to the credit piece that you're talking about. On the housing side, we were seeing home building really pick up when we were doing the first-time home buyer tax credit. We had done it twice. We saw a lot of people take advantage of what was originally, I think, an $8,000 tax credit and then $6,500. It phased out at the end of April, and there were a lot of sales in April, and then it fell off in May and June. It seems to be picking up a little bit, but you know, we wanted to get the market back on its feet. We knew there would be some retrenchment, some contraction of it. Seems to be picking up a little bit. As to the bigger projects, the multifamily, the Housing and Urban Development Department is trying to get some lending out to start some new communities. I'm working on more of the energy efficiency and renewable energy with respect to single-family housing, but also multifamily housing. Most of the multifamily housing that we have, most of it's owned or underwritten, sponsored in some way by the Housing and Urban Development Department. So it's for low to moderate income earners, for senior citizens, for disabled people. Most of those things were built before 1980 and most of those before 1970. We haven't done much in terms of construction of new apartment houses in quite some time. They're not very energy efficient. There are a lot of jobs just in changing the windows, changing the insulation, putting in new boilers, maybe putting solar or something like that on the roof. And that's where we see a lot of construction jobs. And there are some debates. I'm actually working with the White House on that subject. I have a call with them on Monday to really get that thing going. So that's something. I was a trustee of the National Renewable Energy Lab before I was elected to Congress. And so one of my passions is renewable energy, energy efficiency. Colorado clearly is a leader. We need to, provide capital so that these businesses can continue to grow. But HUD will save a lot of money on its utility bills. Its biggest utility bill is its biggest line item of its budget is its utility bill, $5 billion a year. And if